When I think Fourth Doctor, I'm often drawn to the stories of the mighty 200, the ones we fans endlessly debate and dissect. Pyramids of Mars, robots of death, the seeds of doom come to mind. Welcome to the snake pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Demon, and today we're diving into the Talons of Weng Chiang, one of the most beloved stories from the Fourth Doctor era. Now, let me get something straight right off the bat. Terror of the Zygons is my favorite. But does that make it the best? I'll admit I've got a soft spot for that story, but if we're being brutally honest, I yield to the rankings of the mighty 200. Terror will always have a special place in my dark heart, but we're here to talk about Talons, a story that, whether you love it or loathe it, has earned its spot in Doctor Who legend. The Fourth Doctor and Leela arrive in Victorian London, where a series of mysterious disappearances leads them to the heart of the Limehouse district. They encounter Magnus Greel, a war criminal from the 51st century who has travelled back in time, horribly disfigured from failed time travel experiments. He relies on his loyal murderous accomplice, Mr. Sin, a creepy, doll-like peeking homunculus with a pig's brain, to carry out his nefarious plans. As the Doctor and Leela uncover the conspiracy, they face threats from Greel's cult followers, led by the sinister Weng Chiang, who uses sleight of hand and illusions to control his victims. Greel's goal is to restore his failing health by using the time cabinet to return to his era. The Doctor must stop Greel and Mr. Sin, navigating the shadowy streets of London in a story filled with Gothic horror, sci-fi intrigue, and theatrical villainy. Let's get something out of the way, Leela. Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of her. I know she's got a die-hard fan base. When I was younger, I felt her character was forced. There was something about this savage warrior woman in Victorian London that just didn't click for me initially. And while Louise gave it her all, I always thought Leela's role was more of a blunt instrument than anything nuanced. You have Tom Baker in his prime delivering these sharp, witty lines, then Leela just spears something, and it's like, all right then. One thing we can't ignore is Deep Roy as Mr. Sin. This guy is one of those actors you've seen everywhere, even if you didn't realize it. Deep Roy brings this eerie, unsettling presence to Mr. Sin, making him the perfect, creepy, doll-like character. Watching him alongside Magnus Greel, played by Michael Spice, gave this story a kind of Gothic horror vibe that few others in Doctor Who could match. There's something about a murderous, centuries-old Peking homunculus running around Victorian London that just works, even if it's as absurd as it sounds. Talons has not aged well, particularly in its portrayal of the Chinese characters. Weng Chiang, played by John Bennett, a white actor in heavy makeup, is an unfortunate example of yellowface, a practice that would never fly today. The portrayal of Chinese culture is at best stereotypical and at worst offensive, relying on old-school tropes that feel uncomfortable. For all its Gothic charm, this part of Talons leaves a sour taste and reminds us that even some of our favorite stories come with baggage. We've got to be real about the pacing too. For all its atmosphere, Talons isn't flawless. Like many stories from this era, it drags in places. 6 episodes is a tall order for any plot to maintain momentum. I get that this was the style back then, but even as a die-hard classic Who fan, I can't pretend the middle episodes don't sag a bit. And can we talk about that final showdown? Greel's downfall is, let's face it, pretty anticlimactic. For all the build-up, it felt like they just ran out of steam. I was expecting something a little more epic, especially considering the Gothic horror vibes the whole serial had been building up to. But instead it felt a little flat. Now, as we look back on Talons, there's a reason it's so beloved. It's a near-perfect blend of Gothic horror, sci-fi madness, and Victorian adventure. It's a big, ambitious story that does a lot right, but it also shows its age in more ways than one. And yes, while I didn't love Leela at first, I can appreciate her dynamic with the Doctor more now, even if I'll always prefer other companions. Talons might not be my personal favorite, but I won't deny its place in Doctor Who history. It's not without its flaws, but for a story that dares to mix time travel, killer homunculi, and Victorian London, it remains a standout in the Fourth Doctor's era. I'm Snake Demon, and this has been The Snake Pit, Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments where I won't read them.